Audio test one. Audio.
or have a Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everyone. All right. I like the feedback. Welcome to Apex Town Council meeting. I want to go ahead and call this meeting to order for Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. And before we get started, I do want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Ed Gray for standing in for me 2 weeks ago. I know how to choose which council meetings to be at. What time did y'all get out of here?
11:30.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I picked it right. Good job. Good
And
job.
we'll do it again today.
Yeah, we'll see.
You're all in for a treat. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a packed house. It's always good to see people packing this house. It's really great to see the community engagement, and we got a lot to do tonight. A lot of people to recognize and celebrate. So it's an honor to do that. Before we get started, we're going to move into the invocation, and I would like to call up Elder Ricky Omana from Divine Church, 3468 Apex Peakway, here to deliver the invocation.
Let us pray. Dear God, we gather today seeking your guidance and wisdom. We ask that you be with us, fill our minds with clarity and our hearts with understanding. Help us to work together in unity and to make decisions that honor your principles. We pray for your peace and blessing in our time together. Lord, help us to approach our task today with compassion and understanding. May be patient with one another, Father, and willing to listen to different perspectives. We ask that you help us to be kind and generous in our interactions, and that we may find common ground in our shared goals. We pray for your blessings to be with us. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for that. All right. If you would, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you so much. We do have special guests in the chamber tonight. I do want to recognize them right now. We have this pink and green wearing group here. All right, special group here. The AKAs are in the house. Thank you so much for being here. All right, we're going to recognize you later. All right, excited about that. We also have Girl Scout Troop 2141 in the house. Thank y'all for being here. And then we have Miss Lindsay Mahaffey, Wake County Schools. Okay, mom today. Okay, all right. Well, thank you for being mom today. Did I miss anyone? All right. Moving right along, we'll go to the consent agenda. All consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda and without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any recommended changes to the consent agenda before we move forward?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull consent items 9 and 13 and continue those on June 24th, please.
All right, noted. Any other recommended changes? Hearing none, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion is Egerman.
Second.
With the amendment.
Yeah. Second.
Second again, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. All right, move now to updates. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Got quite a few things to cover for you. I'll try to do that pretty quickly. I'll start with utility bill printing. Hopefully others experienced what I experienced. I received a paper bill in the mail. So we know that our printing contract is back on track, in place. Customers should receive their May bills, which were delayed because of that transition. June bills should be on the normal schedule. So we're excited for those that receive paper bills, that you should be receiving those now. Third-party opt-in with the recalculation update on that. We have currently 66 customers that have requested a billing recalculation. So we continue to update that number on our website, but as of today, we have 66 there. Saunders Lot project. A lot of exciting things happening there. We are on track and within budget, so I'll start with that. A lot of the work you can't tell, but all of a sudden it'll we're going to have some paving, and it's like, bam, this project's there, because the drainage work is over 50% complete. So that's a lot of the significant work that needed to be done there. But 50% complete there. Final paving and pavement markers in phase 1 is currently slated to be completed by the end of July. So once completed, the southern lot will reopen and the public will have close to 200 spaces there, 200 new spaces to have access there. And then we'll start construction on the other piece where the gravel lot is. So in the coming months, you'll see some significant progress there. Also, the local spot, as you are aware, we launched that, our social district, on June 7th. Reiterating, the hours are from 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. And you can visit the town website for additional information on that. But we should have all of our stickers and signage. I know I saw a few people with the new cups and toasting with that, so that's great to see. We also have a holiday closure coming with Juneteenth. That'll be next Thursday, 19th, so Town Hall will be closed for observance. Some upcoming festivals, and I think we'll be talking about those with proclamations, but we've got on June 14th is Pride Festival here at Town Hall campus. It's 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And then the Juneteenth Festival will be held on Saturday, June 21st, and that also will be here this year on Town Hall campus, and that'll be from 12 to 7. And the last thing, I'm going to read this from the computer. So, our eSuite portal, which is the online interface with paying your bills for utilities, we are going to be transitioning to My Account. It's the My Account utility customer portal. It will launch on July 7th for our utility customers. So the new portal, it'll replace the eSuite, which is currently our interface. We'll have a lot of new features, text and email notifications, insights into usage, new ways to pay. It's really a robust upgrade to our system. And to prepare for that, there will be a blackout period. So this is important, from June 28th to July 6th. There'll be a blackout period for the eSuite, the My Account portal. So during this time, customers will not be able to make online payments in eSuite. You pay by phone or send payments by online banking during that blackout period. You will not be able to do that. If customers need to make payments during the blackout period, they'll have to come into Town Hall and pay with cash, check, or money order during that blackout period. Customers will still be able to access eSuite, and so you can look at your usage and payment history, but you will not be able to make payments during the blackout period. And we'll have all this information, we're pushing it out, but I wanted to reiterate that this evening. And you can get information on our website on the new My Account portal. You can go to apexnc.org/portal on that. So a lot of exciting things. When we get to the other side, it's going to be great. There are a lot of new features. It's a more robust program that I think our customers will be excited to have in place. And that's all that I have.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
I just want to share, last night I attended the TST 7v7 in Cary. I know it wasn't Apex, but it was in Cary at the Wake Med Soccer, and they were sharing that we supported them in that endeavor by allowing Pleasant Park fields to be utilized for the Cary Cup.
Yes, sir.
13 million in economic impact. So I just want to thank the staff for doing that.
It was a big deal. I think there was over 30,000 in attendance, I heard, for the numbers, so big deal.
Thanks. Okay. All right. It's now time to move to setting up the regular meeting agenda. Are there any recommended changes for that before we approve it? Hearing none. Is there a motion to?
Motion to approve. Second.
All right. Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Motion carries unanimously. All right. We have presentations. We have a total of 4 proclamations out of the 5. So we'll move down in front and present those proclamations together. All right, the first proclamation we have tonight is Apex Pollinator Week 2025, and kicking this proclamation off would be Councilmember Gant.
Whereas pollinators are indispensable to the growth and health of plants, flowers, food crops, and soils, and help communities thrive by providing natural beauty, clean air, and healthy food, and
whereas pollinator species include animals such as bees, wasps, flies, butterflies, moths, beetles, bats, and some birds and small mammals, and
Whereas National Pollinator Week has been observed since 2007 as an effort to recognize the importance of pollinator species and bring attention to the needs for efforts to protect and sustain them. And
Whereas the town of Apex has a long-standing commitment to ensuring our pollinator habitat can thrive and grow through the signing of the Mayor's Monarch Pledge, Bee Cities USA certification since 2020, and the creation of the Pollinator Habitat Certification Program to recognize those in our community that are contributing to the protection of pollinator species. And
whereas the town's Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department is proud to host its second annual Pollinator Week event, an evening in the garden on 26 June 2025 at Apex Nature Park, with a goal of further educating the public in the importance of pollination.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of June 23rd through June 29th, 2025, Apex Pollinator Week in the town of Apex, and encourage residents to learn more about the importance of pollinators and their role in making Apex healthy and beautiful. And receiving the proclamation tonight will be Girl Scout Troop 2141, leaders Una Newman, Meredith Nye, and Kristen Millam. Is that right? Okay, all right. Apex Youth Council, President Kirthana and Kathakian, and Environmental Committee Chair and Wida Jidam. I know I messed that up, but come on up. All right, come on up, come on up. And then we also have the Alpha Delta Gamma Omega chapter receiving the proclamation. So you guys come on up as well. All right, thank you. She seems strong. Yeah. This is gonna be fun right here. All right. Randall, how you gonna do this, man? Oh, so we're gonna break it up. Okay, that's cool. That's fine. All right. Sorry about that. I'm trying to follow instructions. All right. I guess we're not this one. All right, y'all guys. Do you want us to good January?
Come up towards us. Okay. That's the part.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for being here. All right. The next proclamation is Apex Public Works Appreciation Week 2025, which is Sunday, June 15th through Saturday, June 21st, 2025. So Councilmember Mahaffey, if you would start us off.
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas the Town of Apex's Public Works Department provides many invaluable services, including solid waste services, facilities and grounds maintenance, fleet vehicle upkeep, streets and signs maintenance, and more, and
Whereas these services enhance the quality of life for our residents, help ensure the town is clean and healthy, and allow town employees to do their job efficiently, comfortably, and without interruption. And
whereas Apex Public Works has a broad portfolio of responsibility, including maintenance of 247 miles of town-owned roads and 266 miles of sidewalks, managing solid waste and yard waste services for nearly 25,000 homes, maintaining facilities and grounds at dozens of town locations, and performing inspections and repairs on over 400 town vehicles and 243 pieces of equipment. And
Whereas National Public Works Week was celebrated from May 18th to 24th, 2025, and its theme was People, Purpose, Presence, highlighting the motivation public works employees use to serve their community every day. And
Whereas the town of Apex is grateful to its public works staff for the excellent work they do and the dedication they show in the performance of all their duties.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the week of June 15th through June 21st, 2025 as Apex Public Works Week in the town of Apex, and encourage residents to extend their gratitude to these civil servants who help keep our town beautiful. Thank you. Thank you, Croy. I appreciate your help. Director John Mullis and members of the Public Works Department, if you would please come up and receive this proclamation that you are due. All right. We'll go this way, shake your face. This way. Thank y'all so much for everything you do. Appreciate you. Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Thanks for your service. Thanks for your service. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
No. Randall. All right.
Thank you.
What's that? Yeah. All right, the next proclamations we have, two important proclamations coming up. And what I want to say is, as mayor of our town, it's important that we continue to do the work. No matter what the circumstances are, we continue to move forward. And in that, you just have to keep moving forward, and sometimes you just brush your shoulders off and keep moving. Y'all know where that come from. Absolutely. So we'll go with Juneteenth, 2025. I'm so proud to do this one. And we will have this kicked off by my man, Mayor Pro Tem Ed Gray. I knew it was you. Please step up.
Going to want a little energy for this one. For the proclamation for Juneteenth 2025, whereas Juneteenth stands as a historic milestone in our nation's journey towards freedom, recognizing the end of slavery for Black Americans in the United States, and provides an opportunity for communities to reflect on the struggles and triumphs of Black Americans. And
whereas on January 1, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, setting in motion the end of slavery in the United States. And on June 19, 1865, Union General Gordon Granger announced General Order No. 3, proclaiming that all enslaved individuals were free. And
whereas Juneteenth is the oldest Black American holiday that observes and commemorates the day when 250,000 enslaved peoples learned of their freedom 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. And
whereas although slavery in the United States is in the past, civil rights and equality issues for Black Americans still persist, and we are committed to efforts that ensure the progress that has been made only continues to move forward. And
whereas the town of Apex is proud to host our annual Juneteenth Festival, organized by the Apex Juneteenth Festival Committee, beginning at 11 a.m. on Saturday, June 21st at Town Hall campus for a full day of celebrations, music, food, stories, and so much more.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the 19th day of June 2025 as Juneteenth in the town of Apex, and encourage all residents to join in the celebration of freedom that Juneteenth represents, and continue our efforts to help make Apex a community that is a welcoming place where all have the opportunity to thrive. Receiving the proclamation tonight is TJ Evans, Calabria Gilbert, Croy James Evans, Will Hyman, Donovan Bethay, Anthony Barnes Jr., and none other than our retired Mayor Pro Tem, Nicole Dozier. Step up, come on.
Let's get y'all in the middle.
He told you.
We're gonna have y'all in the middle.
Oh, you told me to? Okay.
Ready?
All right, the pastor prayed that we're patient with one another. I know I'm a little long-winded, so just be patient with me, okay? So first, I just want to say on behalf of the committee, thank you guys for allowing us to be here and accepting the proclamation. I know we do it every year, but it's always an honor and a privilege, so thank you for the opportunity. Also want to thank you, Mayor, always for your unwavering advocacy and support. Also, Randy, I want to shout you out and say thank you as well for your desire to always find a solution that's beneficial for both parties. So I want to say thank you for that. Craig, I see you over there. want to say thank you as well. I know our relationship hasn't always been easy, but what I do want to say and what I do want to acknowledge is that you guys have done a tremendous job ensuring a smooth transition as we become a town-sponsored event back to a community event. So I just want to say thank you for that. Also, too, I want to address two common misconceptions as it relates to Juneteenth. The first one is that Juneteenth is a DEI created holiday. And in actuality, Juneteenth is America's second Independence Day, right? I know we just heard based on the proclamation what Juneteenth represents, so I won't go too far in that. But I do want to say DEI did help in terms of creating advancement or awareness of what Juneteenth is, and also advocating for it to be a federal and local recognized holiday. But Juneteenth's been celebrated since 1865. So I just wanted to highlight that. The second misconception is that Juneteenth is a holiday just for Black people. And my sentiments to that are exactly what I echoed at our last meeting up here with Black History Month. And Black history is everyone's history. It's my history. It's your history, right? And so we encourage everyone to come out and celebrate what a monumental time it is for our society. And then also, I wanted to share what our theme for the festival this year is. And the theme is emancipate. And I know when we think about that word, a lot of times we think about the removal of physical barriers, right? So emancipation of slavery. I know sometimes that word has a negative connotation on it, right? People may take offense to it, or it may be met with condemnation. But for me, when I think about that word and what it means, I think it's truly an opportunity to highlight some of the invisible barriers that are still causing divide within our communities. And what those barriers look like for me are health disparities. It could be financial insecurities. It could be educational gaps, right? And when I mention educational, I'm not necessarily talking about schooling, but I'm talking about opportunities to educate each other on our culture, on our backgrounds, and providing opportunities to come together, right? And so we like to use our platform that we've created through the festival to highlight these disparities, but we like to do it with a message of love and unity, right? And then we also want to have empathy at the driving force of that, because I'm a big proponent of empathy. I think if we practice that in our everyday lives, we would inherently make our society a better place. And so that's truly the message that we share at our festival, and we want everyone to come out and enjoy. So with that being said, we would welcome you to come out June 21st. It's from 12 p.m. to 7 p.m. on Apex Town Hall campus. We have so many activations. I would be here for another 30 minutes, so I'll spare you guys. But if you go on apexjuneteenth.com, you'll see the list of our performers, you'll see a list of our activations that we have along with the program for the day. So we'd really encourage you to come out and celebrate in a place where you belong. So thank you.
As you can tell, TJ is not passionate about Juneteenth at all. All right, move to the final proclamation, LGBTQIA plus Pride Month, June 2025. And kicking us off with that proclamation will be Councilwoman Killingsworth. Thank you.
Whereas LGBTQIA plus Pride Month is celebrated each June to acknowledge the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual communities and celebrate their lives and show them that they are loved. And
whereas this year marks the 56th annual Pride Month celebration, and through the years it has turned into a worldwide time of support and love for a community that has endured much hardship and persecution, both socially and criminally. And
whereas the traditional pride flag has 6 colors representing life, healing, sunlight, nature, serenity, and the spirit of the LGBTQIA plus community, and has been updated over the years to be more inclusive of different identities and sexual orientations. And
whereas we affirm that LGBTQIA plus rights are human rights and stand firmly opposed to any effort that seeks to undermine the tremendous amount of progress that has been made in the struggle for equal rights in our nation. And
whereas the town of Apex invites all residents to join in celebration for our annual Pride Festival, hosted by Apex Pride, this Saturday, June 14th, and experience the joy and fulfillment that can be found when people gather with love for each other and our community.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2025 as LGBTQIA+ Pride Month in the town of Apex. As your mayor, I remain committed to equal human rights for all residents and encourage everyone to have the sense of pride in being their authentic self, regardless of gender expression, and show love and respect to everyone. I would like to call up to receive the proclamation, Ellen Dershowitz, if you would come up, Deanna Kennard, Aaron Schultz, Carrie Ann Kroll, and Laura Bain. That's wrong.
That's cool.
Got it?
Right here, Mr. Mayor.
That's ours.
I thought you were a photographer.
Hey, about with my equipment.
All right, we're good. Yeah,
Any
we're
words?
good.
No, you good? Okay.
Thanks for having us.
so much.
That's cool. Perfect for taking pictures with kids that don't want to pay attention.
All right, thanks, colleagues, for reading those proclamations. We'll move now to presentation 5, Apex Transit Prioritization Study Update. Katie Schwink.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of Town Council. I'm Katie Schwing, the town's transit planner in the planning department, and I'm here to provide an update about the Apex Transit Prioritization Study. So this is an internal staff-led study that is meant to develop recommendations for possible expansion and improvement of transit services in town with a approximately 0 to 5 year time frame. So it's not meant to be a long-term plan. The intended outcome is to develop a draft or a list of recommendations for your review and acceptance. And a secondary outcome is to develop an implementation plan to actually make those recommendations happen. I did want to point out that tonight's presentation is not the final list of recommendations. It's more like a preview, a draft list. We are planning to do a round of public comments this summer to gather input on those and then come back with the final recommendation to you all later this summer. So there are 4 main tasks involved in this project. We reviewed existing plans for the transit planning context of our area. We gathered public feedback, and we'll do so again this summer. We analyzed different options, and we are now in the stage of developing the recommendations. So just to give some highlights of the first 3 tasks before we get into the draft recommendations, we do have our long-range transportation plan, Advance Apex, that has a transit plan map showing existing and possible future transit services that was approved in 2019 and has been updated over the past few years. We have land use planning context areas in town, which includes a transit-oriented development context area, as well as our small town character area near downtown. And we have a host of other plans that have talked about transit services over the past few years. I'm not going to talk about all of them. You probably have seen these, but just letting you know that there was a lot of review that went into to make sure that we were keeping the previous plans in mind while making future recommendations. So as far as gathering feedback, our main pushes for feedback actually happened last year. We had 2 public surveys. One was an online survey open to anyone in the community, and another was a targeted survey on board of Go Apex Route 1. And then we'll have a public comment period this summer. We've also gathered feedback more informally from others, not just through surveys, including our Transit Advisory Committee in town. And so we've been providing updates and gathering feedback from them along the way, and have met with other town departments and some external stakeholders as well, like the county and GoCarry and others, as we've been working through this. So again, I'm not going to read the whole slide, but there were some pretty valuable points of feedback that we got from our online survey. We asked a lot of preference-based questions in that survey about what people wanted to see with transit in town. And when asked to rank their most preferred options for improvement and expansion, there was basically a tie. I think there was 1 vote difference between adding a second route in town and increasing frequency on Go Apex Route 1. And what's funny about that is we had actually put a poster out at Peak Fest a couple years ago, and almost the exact same result happened on that poster. And we also learned that by far the most common destination people wanted to get to was downtown. And people really valued a sense of safety and security with transit service, not only on the vehicle, but also at bus stops and paths to get to bus stops. And also value high quality service, so reliability, service that's on time, service that's more frequent, things that are probably not surprising, but good to hear. We also did our onboard survey, which had a slightly different focus, and we gathered more information about who's currently riding Go Apex Route 1. Some notable results from that was that a majority of riders reported that they rode 4 or more days a week. And this is controlled for the number of trips taken. So there was actually a person on board requesting folks to take the survey, and they only needed to take the survey once during the survey period. So it's not double counting folks. They reported that their usual trip purpose was to get to work, and that they did not have a car available to make that trip. As well, 37% reported that they do transfer to GoCarry and GoTriangle services to reach other places besides Apex. As far as demographics, we did gather that over half reported household income under $40,000, and a smaller fraction, but still notable, 13% reported they have a disability that prevents driving. Several respondents reported using a language other than English at home, and several customers did not take the survey because they weren't comfortable using the English or Spanish language version. And we have lots of younger and older riders too. We also asked the satisfaction level of the current riders, and I'm actually going to orient you towards the bottom of the slide, which was where the customers reported least level of total satisfaction with weekend service. So we don't currently operate on Sunday with Go Apex. Service to all locations you want to go, and frequency of service, kind of at the bottom. And we operate hourly right now. And then which aspects of service were most important to the riders to improve were weekend service, again, availability of shelters or seats at bus stops, and bus running on time, frequency of service. So we took the feedback we received and the existing plans, and we also did a few other steps to analyze different feedback as well as data available in town. And our aim was to use this to develop our recommendations. So the first
kind of priority for us was to look at possible future routing concepts in town. And so we also looked at where, on a map, where people said they wanted access to transit. And this is taking data and analyzing it from our online survey, showing the darker hexagons are where more people placed where they would like to see access. And a lot of it is close to downtown. Downtown is the dark blue dot in the middle, as well as retail areas and the library. Those are kind of the highlights, as well as the town campus area. We also looked at population density, and this map is showing not just census data, but our GIS team took the existing census data and actually projected forward based on our approved rezoning and construction plans in town, where we expect to see more people because there's more housing being built. And the shapes look a little weird because they're based on census block groups, which differ in size and shape, but it's showing the relative density. So we're seeing a lot of density coming up basically where Depot 499 is being built right now near Barbecue Road and South Salem Street, as well as other pockets around town. And then again, we analyzed jobs in town. Apex has a strong work from home population, but we also looked at, the projected new commercial developments that are coming on board in town too, and sort of highlighting where jobs are expected to be by about FY27. Okay, so this map is showing kind of our expected FY27 baseline transit service in town. So this is service that's already programmed either from the town or through the Wake Transit program to serve the town by FY27. So you see in yellow, we've got Go Apex Route 1 as it is today. The gray bubble around it is our Go Apex door-to-door service area that offers our ADA paratransit service. And we've also got in green the Go Triangle Route 305, which goes to Raleigh. The dark blue is a programmed route that Go Cary will operate that will replace the Apex Cary Express, going to downtown Cary. And then we're also programmed to get the Go Triangle Route 311 back. So this is kind of the baseline. And we looked at not duplicating the service that's already going to be provided and not directly paid by the town. So now we're getting into draft recommendations. The purple lines that you're seeing added to this map are what staff consider our draft priorities for expansion of fixed route service in town in the next 0 to 5 years or so. And I'll go through the next slides, which highlight kind of each one of the concepts. And these are still considered concepts at this time. They require more vetting on what the possible final routing might be, but they kind of hit the destinations and areas that we feel are important. So the first I'm calling the Pine Plaza Pleasant Park route concept. And it is sort of the opposite orientation of the Go Apex Route 1 in that it's kind of northeast to southwest instead of northwest to southeast, and will serve the Pine Plaza Drive area, which has a lot of retail, multifamily development, Eva Perry Library, which was noted as a top priority for folks wanting access, goes back down through downtown, would allow transfers to Go Apex Route 1, and would then also go down South Salem to serve the Pleasant Park and Depot 499 area, and loop back. And so it would be an hour-long route, similar to Go Apex Route 1. The second priority would be actually to make some tweaks to our existing Go Apex Route 1. And there's really kind of a few piecemeal changes we feel could be made to increase the utility and usefulness of the route, both to existing riders and new riders. The main change is mostly around downtown. So instead of only looping through downtown in one direction, it would actually serve downtown in both directions of the route. and make your trip to and from downtown quicker. So right now, depending on which direction you're going in, it can be up to 45 minutes before you get back to where you came from. And this would shorten that. So focusing on access to downtown, as well as making some tweaks, hopefully to improve access to the Walmart, which people really have provided feedback that they want closer bus stop access to, and utilizing the new connection that's in construction right now on Chapel Ridge Road to turn that into a loop and provide access to the new apartments and townhomes that are being built there. We're also proposing a route concept that we're calling Viridia East Village Loop. So right now, there's not much there in the Viridia development area, but as you all are, I'm sure, very aware, development is occurring quickly. This is expected to be a pretty dense mixed-use area. It's the site of a future Wake Tech campus, and it also is in our transit-oriented development context area, and staff have also been working with the developer through their approval process to kind of pre-build bus stops to make it easier to provide service here in the future. So we feel like this would be a great place to serve with transit and provide access to Wake Tech. And the concept shown is a 30-minute route, so you can get to and from downtown in 30 minutes. And this would be timed to wait basically until Wake Tech would be open to serve students and more build out happened in Viridia. So like I said, there's a lot of infrastructure development happening right now, but the sort of estimate that Wake Tech has told us is they'd like to be able to start serving students there in the fall of 28. Maybe it's not full build out, but partial build out. And then the last concept is what we're calling the Center Street Lufkin Road Loop, which is another half-hour route that would serve Center Street, Lufkin Road, where the middle school is, the business park that's out there, as well as multifamily housing that's along 1010. And this is kind of a synopsis of the different types of destinations that we would be able to get to with this network, with the sort of baseline that we have, as well as the added concepts. And this chart is just another way of saying the same thing that's not on a map. But the kind of first top priority I didn't map out. It's basically, let's continue what we've already got funding approval for and haven't been able to implement yet, which includes Sunday service on Go Apex Route 1, increased frequency on Go Apex, as well as continuing bus stop improvements. And we have projects underway right now to do those things. So additionally, I have another kind of set of draft recommendations that are, I guess, in the category of other, which is everything except the fixed route concepts. Number one is continue to support our federally required Go Apex door-to-door service. So this is sort of half recommendation, half requirement, but it helps to fit the context of some of these other recommendations as well. Number two is explore options to serve seniors and those with disabilities outside the federally required Go Apex door-to-door service area. We have great service on Go Apex door-to-door, but we don't have a program for outside that area, and it doesn't reach the entire, town limits of the town. Number three is support phase one of the proposed downtown mobility hub build out. I'm not going to go into detail about that project in this presentation. I know you heard a presentation about it recently. The proposed routing concepts would benefit from having a centralized mobility hub downtown to make transfers and also to help with operating the routes. So places for operators to switch off, have a break, things like that. Number four is evaluate land use policies for transit supportive development as part of our comprehensive plan update. So our comprehensive plan is scheduled to be updated in the next 18 months or so. So the kickoff will be this summer. And this is just to reiterate the fact that transit benefits from transit supportive development. So we should consider that as part of our plan update process. There's trade-offs that are involved with that, and so we just want to make sure that's evaluated. Number 5 is to investigate transit signal prioritization in town. Transit signal prioritization is where transit vehicles can actually communicate with the traffic signals in town to help reliability. A simple example is if a bus is approaching a green light, it might actually be able to extend the green light a little bit longer to help prevent them from stopping too many times along the route. Number 6, explore options to serve others outside the general fixed route service area. So this is sort of others in terms of, in addition to seniors and those with disabilities. And we know that not just seniors and those with disabilities have mobility needs that might not be met right now. Maybe they live in an area that is not ready for fixed route, but they still need another option. So want to explore that. And then last ongoing recommendation to support improved pedestrian bicycle connections to transit for overall multimodal connectivity. Okay, so that's our draft list of recommendations. I just wanted to highlight really quickly, we did think of these recommendations with implementation and feasibility in mind. And even though we have a short time frame, a lot of these things still will take a few years to implement. It's probably more like a 3-year process to start a new route. So this is just kind of, I'm not going to read this whole chart, but it's just giving you an idea of how long it might take to kind of build out these recommendations if they are approved this year. So fiscal year 26, we would be looking at, finalizing routing, applying for grants, designing bus stops, things like that. FY 27 would be installing new bus stops, and FY 28 was when we would really be able to start service on the first route expansion. So as far as next steps, we're planning to take these draft recommendations out to the public in June through July, basically, and then finalize the recommendations based on that feedback and bring it back to you all for review and possible acceptance, with the idea that we would want to get started with any recommendations that are accepted pretty soon after that. It just takes a lot of upfront work to get some of these projects going. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions or hear any comments from you all.
Thanks, Katie. Questions?
Yeah. I mean, I want to start by asking about a couple of things that aren't in the plan, and what staff's thinking of it is. And I guess 2 that come to mind that are pretty obvious is, well, first, connectivity further west. The draft routes here, all very important, but also, you can make an argument for connecting the Sweetwater area to downtown. We're planning for a new park, Wimberley area, some new development up there as well. And so through this process, we're having a discussion about routes for those areas. And can you speak to why, if so, why these routes you think would be prioritized over there?
Yeah, that's a great question. And our town keeps growing, right? So there's probably going to be increased population in those areas over the next few years. We took I would say a somewhat conservative look at our expansion over the next 0 to 5 years and prioritize based on where we think the highest ridership would be. One thing that is, it's a little bit hard to tell just by looking at the map, but when you start getting into the logistics of running the actual service, it really would cost more than you think in terms of miles and hours to serve some of the areas in the western part of town, just because of the distances that are involved in getting to destinations. So from a cost perspective, our best bet is probably sticking closer to downtown and some of the more areas more multifamily, more retail destinations and retail jobs and things like that. I don't think the answer is we should never serve the area, in the western part of town with transit. But if we're going to pick one to do first, these would be our recommendations. There are recommendations I would look into that were not mapped out, sort of exploring options for areas that might not be ready to support a fixed route transit service that we would want to evaluate, but this study didn't get into the level of detail to provide an implementation plan for those types of services. There are things like demand response services and microtransit that could be explored, but not really ready for that quite yet.
Because that was my other question, because a number of towns around Wake County, I think Wake Forest and Holly Springs this year, are looking at funding microtransit as an option for their residents. And my other question was, do staff have any thoughts on that? You kind of answered that a little bit. Personally, like, microtransit's great, I feel, but I like the fact that buses actually get other cars off the road, and if we're trying to address traffic, microtransit does nothing to reduce traffic. But yeah, that was my other question. If you have any other comments to add, you addressed a little bit there.
Yeah, and just to add on to that a little bit, I mean, there are definitely pros and cons when you're deciding between fixed route and microtransit types of services that we could go into a lot more detail about. But one of the main ones is microtransit sort of has a maximum efficiency that can break very soon once density kind of and demand goes up, and so there's a lot of demand on free microtransit services, and they kind of top out about where Go Apex is right now. And Go Apex has capacity to keep growing as more development happens along the route area with no added cost. So yeah, there's a few things to consider.
Now I know that we're going to get a lot of questions, and you guys did a lot of great work on this, and looking forward to the future presentations on this. But if somebody's watching this and they heard your great presentation and they have feedback, they have things that they want to provide to you guys, what's the best way of them being able to, get in contact, say, hey, I've got this idea. That way they've got a chance to provide some input outside of the planned events that we have coming up.
Yeah, so we're in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be doing some updates to a lot of online stuff. So the project webpage will be updated. We'll have basically a comment survey form where folks can write out comments and questions that they have about the recommendations. We'll be doing the digital blitz of emails and social media and things like that. And they can always contact me directly. My contact information is pretty much anywhere you find transit information, so the ride guides, the website, the town directory, and I'm happy to talk through it with other folks if there are folks who want to kind of dig into a little more detail about it.
Appreciate your ability and your openness and your accessibility. I think it makes a big difference, particularly with this sort of project that's going to help so many people.
Great. Any other questions?
First a comment. I really appreciate the work that staff has put into this. We hear frequently about the bus route and large parts of town being inaccessible, right? And I think that you've gotten the feedback, you designed new routes around that feedback, and I think that goes a long way. My question was about the kind of the order of your priority listing. So you started with kind of the next route, the new route that kind of goes southwest to northeast. And then secondly, you mentioned the updates to the existing routes. Like, wouldn't it be a lot easier to make updates to the existing route first, right? Because that's an established service. You already have to have the bus on the road. What's kind of holding us back from implementing that right now?
Yeah, that's also a great question. And in my mind, there's not a big gap between the one and the two, so I think they're both really important. There are some more capital project reasons why we might want to kind of put the revised Go Apex Route 1 improvements below the second route. And for example, like for the Walmart stop, we need to explore a little bit more whether a signal might be needed at Broadstone Station Way and the Peakway, which takes a little bit of time. And making sure that Chapel Ridge Road is completed and accepted and all those sorts of things. But in terms of priority, they're really pretty even in my mind. And just, some of the revised routing downtown might need a little bit more vetting, taking vehicles out there and things like that to finalize the routing, but they're really similar.
Right. My comment more being, it seems easier to execute on the changes to the existing route because in large part the bus stops are already there, right? Save maybe a couple. I'm not sure why a signal would be needed specifically just for the bus, but you don't have to answer me right now. But I'm just looking at like the speed of execution, right? Like how quickly can we improve service to our residents, right? And this seems to be a little bit lower hanging fruit than building a whole new route. And so I'm just, I'm sure there's considerations, but if there's any, follow-up we can do, or, I would appreciate that.
My predictions of your asked questions would be microtransit and speed of the implementation. So I was right on. I had a couple comments. One was I've sent Katie 10 or so bus routes in my head that I thought would be good to test, and in my opinion, the ones that she's made in these maps are better than anything I even sent. So I'm really pleased. Related to the fixed route versus microtransit, I think the scalability is one thing to think about. It's hard to once we get bigger, but also the fact that fixed routes lead to possible land use changes, like we did on the map back in like 2021. Also, investments in sidewalks and bus stops. Like sidewalks, for example, is something that helps the bus stop, but also the whole area around. And you don't get those. There's no need for those things when you have a microtransit system versus this. So that's why I'm a believer in fixed route. Maybe the combination of both areas we can't serve. I think the bridge over 64 in Sweetwater would be a good time to think about the bus, because they can go over that bridge instead of being on 64 where there's nobody that lives there and no bus stops. Oh, and the other thing I was going to think about was the funding for this, and how my understanding with the Wake Transit plan is right now it's going to go from a 50-50 split to 35-65 and possibly lower. Like I've been advocating as the spokesperson from this council for like a 25%, let's say. And I was thinking about looking at these maps and thinking about if we got 25% local matching, the downtown area, like the mobility hub area, right now it's served once per hour, one way. And if we had this full build out, with these 4 routes and then the 30 minutes for the Route 1 and the Pine Plaza one, it will go past, if you count each direction as one, it will go past that area 12 times per hour instead of once per hour. And if we have 25% matching, that would be 3 times the cost for 12 times the frequency in downtown, which I think is pretty amazing. And I hope that the plan will allow for that expansion to happen. I think, and I've been advocating it every single chance I get to see they'll do that. So I just think that's a really exciting way for people who want to go downtown. And right now they're kind of like, every hour, I don't know, like they're going to, I think, use the bus much more frequently because of that. And I in my neighborhood, which is near the purple route, I think people, they would have gone to the social district like they did on Saturday, but instead of driving or taking an Uber, whatever they did, they'll take the bus from my neighborhood up there and enjoy that. And that's just a kind of a casual way of doing it, not even mentioning the workers who will be using those routes. So in the balance of frequency versus coverage, I think you really nailed it with these routes, and jobs versus just kind of a casual ridership. I think it's really just a great mix that you've created. So thanks.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where all this route is touching. When you add all of these different routes in, because we're talking about adding the library, which is a big ask, right? Most of the parks are being hit with this. A lot of the schools are being hit with this, so people that work there can ride the bus. And we're also talking about, this is just within a 5-year window, right? So this is a pretty tight time frame for all this to happen. And I kind of see this like, setting up dominoes and watching each one fall, similar to the downtown project. We've got ball fields that are yet to be built out at Pleasant Park, which if we have a route going out that way, that also takes away some of the traffic that we're having in that area, so that can cut down on that.
And parking needs, potentially.
Yeah. So, I mean, and we're looking at an additional library eventually being built here as well, which that will need to be expanded to cover that route area as well. So, and of course, down to Apex Friendship eventually. So there's a lot, right? But that is kind of outside that 5-year window and probably more into the 10 or 15-year window once we get there. But it's very exciting. I love to see this.
Thanks. And one thing to mention about that is with the comp plan update, if there are updates to the vision for town that could influence some of the out years of this plan. So, yeah.
Well done. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Good job. Good job. Yes. All right, let's move on to public forum. This is an opportunity for community to address town council. Remember your 3-minute time limit, and also when you come up, please present your name and address. We have 2 speakers signed up tonight, all 3 minutes. Mr. Clerk. All right, 3 minutes. All right, Don Cozzolino is the first.
Dawn Cozzolino, 3632 Bosco Road. Good evening, Mayor and council members. At every meeting, this council speaks of love, respect, and community. But that spirit never seems to reach New Hill and Friendship. The growth from continued annexations in and around Apex isn't a mistake, it's a mission. Apex is intentionally pushing out the people and communities that stand in the way of its aggressive expansion. Fields are vanishing, tree canopy is gone, and the heritage trees bulldozed. This isn't growth, it's erasure. The communities like New Hill and Friendship, which are established and thriving, are in the crosshairs. We're not in your town limits, but we're living the consequences of your decisions. We don't have a vote, we don't have a voice, but every policy you pass impacts us directly. Let's be clear, what's being built here isn't for us. It's being built over us. Our roads, never meant for this scale of construction, are now damaged and dangerous. Heavy machinery moves in daily, and the risk to our safety grows with every truckload. Meanwhile, there's no plan, there's no funding, and no accountability for the infrastructure collapse you're accelerating. Other towns like Cary require a traffic study for any development that adds 100 new vehicle trips a day. Apex doesn't act until that number is 10 times higher. That's not oversight, that's intentional neglect. Then there's your use of eminent domain. Instead of securing easements on undeveloped land, owned by the very developers you approved to drive this growth, you take from private homeowners when less harmful alternatives exist. The Viridia RXR sewer line is just one example, symbolic of a town government that's chosen control over collaboration, and trees are raised for quick cash. Developers pay a fee instead of preserving the environment and treating nature like an obstacle, not an asset. Retention ponds replace forests, schools are totally overwhelmed and capped, traffic safety is compromised. Apex isn't planning for the future, it's paving over the past. Apex is systematically wiping out our rural communities. I'd like to ask that we be heard. Please sit down with us in our communities, have a New Hill, Friendship, Town Hall, hear our concerns directly, work with us, not around us. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking tonight. Lawrence Kevin.
Good evening. Lawrence Kevin, 1628 Salem Village Drive, Apex. First comment, Mayor, you were sitting next to Chris Paul in the picture and you look better than Chris Paul, so.
Appreciate that.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the CSX contracts. It was in a non-agenda item, and I've been following Apex or CSX contracts because of the Peakway, and probably, I think you guys all know, but I don't think the public knows how much power they wield and the amount of money it costs the town. An example is in the Southwest Peakway, we front-loaded payments of $700,000 for flagging operations. So we basically paid them, and that's something that's billable. And even the contracts, if they submit an invoice, we have 30 days to pay, or they could stop the construction. In this recent one, it's just a walkway crossing, and the lawyer actually tried to add some simple language to it, and basically the answer in there was no. So I went to Ed's kickoff this weekend and heard he's a lawyer and attorney several times, and I'm like asking you to be a little cognizant of these contracts, because I think it puts us at a big disadvantage. The other one I looked at is the VHB. I tried to get digital files for the Southwick Peakway, and honestly, it just kind of pushed off over and over again. It was initially, oh, you can't get it because the design's not done. Well, the design was done, and like, oh, well, what do you need the design files for? I finally asked for the contract. I got it from the clerk. I looked at the language for the contract. They absolutely have no reason to give me anything. I mean, it's in there. It's like, oh, it's third-party use. I said, I'm not charging for anything. I want a better design for the town. I want to do studies. I want to turn it into digital doubles. And I'm asking for work that's been completed and paid for. I don't think we're getting a discount for the work, but I want to be able to take advantage of it and do digital doubles. Everything's going digital. The end deliverables in the contract for the VHB, as an example, was we're going to give you the design documents as a PDF file. I'm like, we're all going towards AI and data, and they're going to give us the most simplest form of the documents. I mean, and even that's good for the contractor and the bidding and the bids. So just look at the contracts. I think we could do a better job. Look out for the town. I mean, CSX, honestly, I look at the pedestrian crossway, and they have carte blanche. I asked, are we looking at a simple gate system? And Terry kind of responded in social media that, no, they said no, we're not going to do it. So who's driving the discussion? They have too much power. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking tonight. All right, that closes our public forum time. Again, thanks everyone for coming out to speak. We'll move on to new business 1, Apex Affordable Housing Plan recommended updates. Marla Newman.
Good evening, Mayor Gilbert, members of the council. Again, Marla Newman, Community Development and Neighborhood Connections. Thank you for allowing us an opportunity to bring to you the update for our affordable housing plan. To kind of set the context for where we're going, you adopted our original plan in the early part of 2021. We were in the height of COVID at that time, and the community has changed dramatically since then. So we started this effort to update our housing plan back in March at our work session. We had a presenter who is here with us now in person, who is Jeff Saucer with Community Scale. His firm we enlisted to help us update the plan because, again, we know the community's changed dramatically. So during that presentation in March, if you recall, Jeff shared with you a lot of the data work that had been done. We were actually in between some of our public engagement processes at that time. Back in February is when we did our focus groups and stakeholder sessions. We came to you with the data and what some of the preliminary looks were around possible recommendations at that time. Then in April is when we had our next round of engagement sessions, which was the Aspirations Academy, as well as some other focus group activities and so forth. So we took all of that information from February, all of the data, then the public engagement sessions in April, and kind of codified all of that information, and now have some recommendations on potential activities that we can undertake with your approval. And this is just to give you the context of where we're going, what we think we can do, especially recognizing that a lot of the items that were outlined in the original housing plan, we have now accomplished. And so, and I'd like to say we accomplished them well ahead of schedule. That was a 10-year plan. Thank you. That was a 10-year plan, and so now it's time to get to the next level of work. So what I'd like to do right now, if I could, is ask Jeff to come up and speak to us about the set of recommendations and the context of how we got to those recommendations based on the data.
Ms. Newman, before he does that,
Yes.
just want to make sure I'm clear. Your recommendation is to adopt tonight.
Yes, actually, that was our recommendation. I know that there's a desire to get more information, and so I would yield to the will of the council. But initially, yes, our desire is to have it adopted, and then we will come back to you with individual items that flow from this actual plan that we would also like to have adopted to get us along the way of implementation.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff?
Mayor, Council, good to see you again, this time in person. I met a few of you during the process. So I'm Jeff Sauser with Community Scale. Marla said we've been working on this housing plan update for several months. We're a planning firm based in Massachusetts, active all over the country doing plans like this for communities like Apex and larger communities, smaller communities, regional, rural, urban. You know, we work across the gamut. This has been a really wonderful project. You've got a great community, committed advocates, wonderful partners to work with. So I think we're really proud of the work we've done together with you and excited to share the highlights tonight. So what you're looking at here is effectively the executive summary. So you have the document. A lot of the work we did has been placed into the appendix so that we can just focus on the highlights here. So I'm going to run through some of that. We did share some of this information back in March, so I'll go through the data portion a bit quicker, just as a refresher for folks who haven't seen that yet. We have a little bit of some of the outcomes of the public engagement process and those meetings in April that Marla referred to, and then we'll walk through some recommendations that stem from the plan at the end. So goals for the study: update the 2021 Affordable Housing Plan, introduce new strategies, help inform the town's direct investment. We'll talk about funding with that, and then we convene the community conversation. I would want to mention that Marla said that they've accomplished many things. They've checked things off the list. Some things don't get checked off the list. We set them up, we run with them, and we don't stop running with them. So that's part of the recommendation as well. Continue the programs that have been successful since the last plan. So to run through the headlines again, as we all know, Apex has been growing rapidly and is expected to continue this rapid growth through the next decade. Much of that growth, the lion's share, is projected to be at the higher income levels moving forward. So that's something, if we want to make sure there's space for the lower income levels as well, that's where we need the implementation strategies we'll get to. We're talking about 13,000 or so new units to keep up with this growth. And as we know, Apex doesn't have that much land left to develop. There are opportunities for redevelopment, infill development, but there's also land to annex. That said, we need to make really good use, really smart use of the limited land we have moving forward. And we've been doing that, I think, over recent years. We need to keep that up moving forward. Just as an illustration, meeting with developers as part of this process, there are simple tweaks we can make to our regulatory structure, such as reducing the required lot width just ever so slightly. So reducing the lot width from a 60-foot minimum to a 40-foot minimum can shave $300,000 off a home price for the home buyer. And the developer still makes their money because they get the density, and there can be a higher property tax revenue too. So higher density, even at lower scales like single-family homes, it can be a win-win-win for homeowners, the town, and developers. We need to continue to rebalance our housing stock. Apex is predominantly single-family homes, 3+ bedrooms, and that's great for the families that live here, but increasingly larger portions of the growing age cohorts, the growing segments of the population are younger adults, older homeowners. These are people that might not have families yet or might be downsizing, so we need to make sure we're introducing a larger share of smaller units and more options for those folks that don't fit the middle-aged nuclear family mold that much of the housing in Apex today was built for. We're aware of the affordability gap, so we measure whether or not, as a benchmark, someone earning the median income in a community can afford the median home price. And for a long time, that was true. Apex was affordable. That all changed around the end of COVID. And these days, the median home costs about $125,000 more than someone earning the median income can afford, and the gap is getting wider. So especially at the lower end of the income spectrum, most households in Apex are cost burdened or severely cost burdened. So that means they're spending either 30% or 40 or 50% or more of their income on housing alone, and that's not a sustainable situation for people. So while at the higher incomes people are able to find things they can afford, at the lower incomes we're really at a crisis point for many residents in Apex. And that has implications for our economy, for our workforce. for those important occupations, the public servants, the healthcare workers, the servers in our restaurants. There's a number of occupations that don't pay enough to afford to live in Apex anymore. Even when you put two incomes together, sometimes it's not. You're still falling hundreds of thousands of dollars short of what it takes to buy a home today. So we need to really focus a lot of our investment on how we can unlock more housing opportunities, in particular for the lower income and the workforce of our community, to keep our economy sustainable. Homelessness rates, people experiencing homelessness across Wake County, that's what the data is available at. That number, especially around first-time homeless population, so the people that are for the first time experiencing extreme housing insecurity, that number actually started to drop up until COVID and through COVID, in part because there were more resources available to support them. As some of those resources and funding streams have dried up and housing has become much more expensive than it was before, we're starting to see an uptick of first-time homeless again. And while we don't see that on the streets necessarily so much in Apex, part of that is because through talking with the service providers, once people enter that situation, they tend to be taken out of Apex and placed somewhere at a lower cost part of the county or elsewhere in the state, because there are limits as to how much housing options can afford for these service providers. So it's kind of an invisible measure of some of the crisis points that some of those lower income people experiencing severe cost burden are experiencing today. So on the income side, we have a tale of two apexes, as one stakeholder put it. Also on the cultural side, we're seeing the potential for ongoing displacement of some of the long-term residents and community members here. So for example, when we look at this map, we're seeing that the darker areas, the darker parts of town, those are the areas that are at a higher risk of displacement of, in this case, Black residents that have lived in their homes longer than most, higher concentrations of lower incomes, lower property values. These are the people most vulnerable to displacement in the red-hot housing market that we have here today. So we need to keep that in mind as we shape policy to protect that heritage that we celebrated earlier tonight in part, and make sure that Apex remains a culturally diverse place as it continues to grow and move forward. So there are numerous reasons why we're having a hard time building affordable housing: regulatory and zoning challenges, financing and cost pressures, the market and developer dynamics, community and political barriers, the ability for residents to organize and communicate and work together. So the recommendations that we're bringing today seek to confront as many of these barriers as we can and try to unlock opportunities to expand affordable housing production. There are a number of strategies that we'll talk about in a few minutes. Some of the recommendations from this process are just continuations or expansions of programs that were introduced back in 2021. Others are new ideas that you'll hear more about a little bit from me, and then in future meetings, I know that Marla's team is going to bring more specific recommendations to you to consider as well. And at the end of the day, to kind of revisit that number, that target, projecting our growth forward the next 10 years tells us that we need 13,000 or so new housing units. How do we deliver those? Well, those units are not all, some of those units, some of that growth is at the higher income levels, and to some extent the market can support that. We don't need to subsidize the higher income housing. The market can cover several thousand units across this full range of need. In the middle income levels, so from 80% AMI to 120% AMI, that's an area where with incentives we can start to deliver that housing. We don't have to directly fund it necessarily, at least not entirely. We can leverage some of the market-driven development through inclusionary zoning and other policies to try to unlock some of the mixed income, some of this missing middle housing level. So we have some incentive suggestions to consider to create more housing units at the 80 to 120% AMI level. And then 80% and below is really a challenge for the market to deliver, and that's where public funding needs to come in. And so that's where we think a lot of Apex's direct investment should be focused to create that, that workforce housing that we talked about before. And just to revisit that point, certain parts of the workforce, the knowledge sector occupations, the engineers, the managers, the computer engineers, the lawyers, they can afford today's home prices. They don't need help necessarily. We need those people in our community too. But those, what some call the essential workforce, the critical workers, the maintenance workers, the healthcare workers, our public servants, law enforcement, even putting two incomes together is often not enough to afford to buy a home. They might be able to come closer to renting, but that might not be what they want to do for the rest of their lives. So those are the folks we're really focusing the investment priorities around that those incomes that are below 80% of the area median income. So what does it cost to build that much housing? Our projection suggests that we need about 3,500 units at below 80% AMI. That is a lot of units over the next 10 years. We estimate through just kind of thinking about what the funding streams have been delivering in the past, we would be asking to fund about $40,000 per unit to try to create units at that below 80% AMI level. And so, to build all 3,500 units is a big ask. We're not asking for that quite yet. We'll work up to that. But we wanted to start by just reminding folks what the current funding level is. We're currently funding the investment fund at around a $2 million a year level. And so at $40,000 a unit, that's enough to catalyze 500 units over the next 10 years, which is a great first step. Our recommendation would be to try to ratchet that up, see if we can get $4 million a year to double that impact and come that much closer to meeting that need that we've projected over the next decade. So with that reminder of how the data shook out, and then also some foreshadowing of some of our funding recommendations, just a quick recap of what the community told us as we were talking with them, especially in April. First of all, people have nothing but good things to say about living in Apex. They love this community. We have lots of wonderful quotes and videos that we collected of people sharing their thoughts and their experiences living here. We asked people to answer questions about trade-offs. So some of them are maybe higher stakes than others. People believe that home ownership is really important. People believe that more than 30% of new housing should be affordable. Many people, or 10 to 30%. I mean, most people believe that a significant amount of new housing should be affordable to people at lower incomes, and that we should consider more smaller homes as well, which is consistent with what the data would tell us that we need. So these surveys are not statistically significant necessarily. The goal is to take the temperature of the community. Where there are just really obvious preferences, we can lean into those. Another important finding is where there's really all of the above selected. So in terms of infill housing, for example, there was support for a variety of solutions, a variety of smaller housing typologies. And same goes on the multifamily. There's support for a variety of solutions. Not one size does not fit all in this community. We need to consider a variety of answers. And there was support across the community to get creative and to find the right solutions that fit the right contexts around town. We asked people to answer questions about trade-offs. So in some cases, this is a trade-off between more density or more open space. Would you tolerate, were you interested in mixed income areas or concentrating affordable housing in different places in individual developments? And again, these are questions where in some cases people need to continue having conversations about these trade-offs. There's not a clear answer. In other cases, people believe that, for example, mixed use is worth doing. And some of this dovetails with the transit conversation we had before. Can we consolidate some of the things we need into areas that are walkable for more affordable housing options? And can we spread mixed income housing across the community, not concentrate it in one place? So we asked people to tell us about their values and goals. What are the most important things to them as part of this plan and moving forward over the next decade? So this list lists them in order of priority as indicated by the participants. I should note that this was a combination of in-person votes, and also we had an online survey. Between those two, we had over 100 to 200 participants in the process. And affordable units, transit-oriented, mixed income, preservation, first-time homebuyers, these were some of the top priorities across the board, but nothing got 0 votes. There are a lot of priorities that this community shares together around housing. So asked the question a different way, what are the housing plan priorities? What should they be coming out of this effort? Again, ranked in order, the number 1 choice was to create an affordable housing fund or bonds, and then offer homeownership preparedness classes. I think the translation from PDF to PowerPoint messed up the numbers, but it's supposed to be 1 through 8 here. Think about developer incentives, acquisition and land banking. Those are the top 4. But again, all of these got votes. All of them are important tools, and I think we would generally say there's no silver bullet. We need to think about as many options as we can to get this done. So just to come back to the recommendations, walk through these real quick. So this is a continuation option. Low-income housing tax credits are a great way. They've been a great way in the past to deliver a significant volume of lower income units. One of the challenges with the LIHTC these days is we've kind of used up all the low-hanging fruit in terms of sites. There aren't that many sites available, especially for 9% credits. But Apex should continue to try to unlock these opportunities. There are some other developers in town that are exploring some possibilities, and I know that the town is standing behind them if and when they get their funding approved by the government. It might be that there's more 4% tax credit projects in the future than 9%, and one of the implications of that is it just costs more. There's more gap to fill, there's more funding needed per unit, but it is what it is. This is an important program we should continue to support when we get the opportunity. Apex is doing a great job across the board at sharing data and offering a transparent way for people to participate in these processes and just keep track of how we're doing. So there are multiple online dashboards already that focus on housing development, on housing data. We built one as part of this process. There's the housing data dashboard that you can see here, development dashboard. So just continue to keep these up to date, to keep these part of the planning process, part of the conversation, so everyone can follow along and understand where we stand in a real-time basis. Keep the annual reports coming out and keep the dashboards up to date. Building on that, conducting attainable housing, education, and advocacy. So again, this is a continuation. Update these plans as frequently as you need to. Lobby at the State House to try to get more support for to face the challenges that Apex is facing, and promote more affordable units, attract more developers that are able to make the numbers work and get some of these admittedly more complex but really important projects done, and have more meetings at the state and local level moving forward. So we alluded to this before, expand that town's housing investment fund. This is a very powerful and direct way to catalyze many more low-income units. Many of these units are, as you may know, the capital stack, as it were. The number of funding streams that need to come together can be complex. The town, by contributing $40,000 per unit on average, can really make a big difference in unlocking some of these opportunities, sometimes in partnership with the county, sometimes on its own in partnership with developers or federal programs. But the town needs to continue to directly invest in that housing serving 80% and below AMI, and increase that as much as it can, because this is the most direct way to really make a difference in an increasingly challenging development climate. Home ownership preparedness classes, down payment assistance. It's never been harder, or it hasn't been harder in a long time to buy a home, especially for a first-time home buyer. You need that much more money up front. It's that much more competitive. It's that much harder to come up with a down payment. And these education programs are proven ways to help prepare people to when the time comes to secure that mortgage and make the payments and become home buyers for the first time. So develop a class curriculum that offers sessions on a regular basis for prospective home buyers, and explore down payment assistance as well, just to help get people in the door on their mortgage and get the numbers in order so they can buy a home, and keep track of progress moving forward. Are people participating? What questions do they have? What ways do they need support? And how can the town continue to adapt to those?
Is that legal for a municipality to offer down payment assistance even after a class?
I think so.
In North Carolina? It is. Does that have to meet certain criteria, I'm guessing, to do it? It sounds like a gift a little bit to me, to an individual, if it's not a loan.
Yeah, so depending on the setup, but if, for instance, in many communities, they couple these programs with federal dollars, like from HUD, and that's a requirement is that they go through home buyer education classes in order to qualify. So we have a number of developers and other organizations in Wake County who provide the home buyer counseling and then can help people be in the pipeline for purchase when they find a home that they like. So it is definitely legal, and that's something that's done throughout this area and throughout the country.
And so the town presumably the money would go to the organization you're talking about, and then they would provide the homeowner with the down payment assistance.
No, usually it's done at the time of closing. The town writes a check to the bank more often than not. Instead of putting it in the hands of the home buyer, actually pay it to the bank that's actually doing the first mortgage.
And that's happening in our state somewhere, or in Wake County?
Yes.
Who's doing that right now? Which municipality?
Well, so DHIC.
No, I'm talking about municipalities doing that.
Oh, Raleigh.
Raleigh's doing that.
Durham, Chapel Hill, most of our municipalities that have home buyer programs. That's the hallmark of how they're structured.
Okay,
Mhm.
thanks.
And we're a number of participating lenders. It's about a list of about 15 lenders in this area who participate in those programs. So they're the ones who provide the first mortgage and look for people to have had the home buyer education and welcome the down payment assistance from the municipalities. Also, Wake County provides home buyer assistance, down payment assistance, as well as NCHFA if you're income qualified. So there are a number of sources that can be stacked together to help get that affordability.
Okay, thanks.
Is that related to, it sounds like you're bringing up maybe some constitutional concerns that we talked about before about gifts to people.
Yes.
And I wonder if what I'm getting from what your comments is that because it's under HUD and it's a federal program, is that why it's allowed?
Well, in many instances, though, there are restricted covenants that come along with these dollars, so it's not per se a gift. You have to meet certain criteria in order to get the funding. However, if you, for instance, don't stay in the home for the requisite period of time, then some of the money may be repayable. So there are a lot of different safeguards, if you will, that are built into the process. So it's not considered a gift.
Okay. I guess what I was trying to get at is us not being a HUD entitlement community, do you think that's a problem or not a problem at all?
No, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Thanks. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so acquiring and banking land directly. So we've done this recently in town, the Hughes Street property, for example. So this could be something that's done with the investment fund. It's a different way of reducing the cost of development by granting or providing the land, the terms attached, affordability terms, for example. More and more communities are doing this to just go ahead and buy the land, especially if there's a good opportunity like the Hughes Street site. And then once you've acquired this land, you can hold on to it. You can work with a partner. Towns sometimes hold on to it themselves. Sometimes they partner with someone else who holds on to the property and sees it through. But at the end of the day, if you own the property, you can really set the terms in terms of what the design is, the density, what the affordability requirements are. And I know that not in the near future, the town is going to be leading a process to figure out, to run a design charrette, to try to figure out what the most appropriate way to use the Hughes Street site is from a design standpoint, and also to get the most bang for the buck from that investment and really get a meaningful amount of affordable housing as part of that project. So we would recommend moving forward with that, getting the most out of that project that you possibly can, and then as we learn from that and see its success, consider that as another avenue for future investments too. It isn't just about filling a light tech gap. I mean, this is just another tool in the toolbox where you have complete control once you've purchased that property. So look for more opportunities to do this again where you can in the future. The Apex Cares initiative has been successful in the past and should be continued in the future. There's no better way to give someone housing than to keep them in the home they already have, especially if it doesn't need a whole lot of work, to make it more accessible, more energy efficient. So continue this program and extend its promotion to more residents, especially those at risk of displacement, especially those aging in place where the market is otherwise creating some displacement risk. So we don't lose those folks that have been here the longest in our community, and try to increase the rate of application by just broadening eligibility categories. I know we've added a few more recently so that more and more people who've been here a long time have access to ways to stay in their homes. So this is an important one. We see this is another idea that we've seen across the country, and developers voiced a desire for something like this. So pre-approved missing middle housing designs. So the idea here is that the typical builders in the area have their templates, they have their pattern books, and they're building what they're used to, what they've understood, what they already paid to design, and that might or might not yield an affordable unit, a small enough unit. Maybe it's, there are many other housing typologies that just are inherently lower cost to home buyers or renters just because they cost less to build. But it's a risk for developers to do the work of designing those and changing their model on their own. And then, what if it doesn't get approved? What if it doesn't meet the town's criteria? So the idea here is to go ahead and do some designs and pre-approve them. Designs that the town already will put a stamp on and say, yes, we like this design. We know this will yield a lower cost unit. If developers will use this design as part of their development, it will get approval. They don't have to worry about that risk, and they can integrate it into their project. And it just encourages and it improves the possibility we'll see more missing middle housing, more lower cost housing as parts of housing developments moving forward.
Approval, what kind of approval?
So obviously not, zoning approval for a specific project, but like, for example, have the building department comfortable with it. Have it built into the, the zoning, make sure that at least within the zoning district it's landing in, it's going to meet the requirements that are built into that. I think a lot of it is just get the building department on board with it, make sure that in the approvals process, in the zoning process, it's not going to be challenged. It's already kind of been blessed. And so there are a number of parameters we could bake into that, both in terms of the building construction, but also the site design, setbacks, all those things. So it's just make sure that it's compliant with the zoning, and everyone has kind of blessed it as such. And it could be part of the incentive zoning process too, where using these is automatically allowed in certain ways.
Right, yeah, and this reminds me, a couple of years ago, we talked about having something like this for ADUs, like having a template.
Raleigh did this. I think it was that.
Yeah, once Raleigh did it, we talked briefly about maybe doing it or copying Raleigh, and nothing really much came of it.
I actually was wondering about Raleigh. Like, has it actually worked in Raleigh? It's been a few years since they did this.
Can we get their designs or to share?
That's what we were going to do, is get their designs and just copy them basically. But I hadn't heard if it's actually worked there or not. If they gotten actually people building these pre-designed units.
Is this for ADUs specifically? I think Raleigh had an effort to have a template of ADUs along this lines of pre-approved.
Was it just ADUs? I thought it was everything.
That was ADUs.
Okay. I'd be interested to hear how it's gone in Raleigh, because my guess is they haven't done much, because I haven't heard about it since 2 years ago, let's say.
I'll just say, at a high level, I'm interested in this kind of approach. And to go a step further, and maybe this is kind of what you mean, what I was trying to get at, is a lot of other communities have had like a separate zoning process entirely for projects that meet a certain criteria, like a fast track. And I've heard from the building community that's something they're very interested in, is a big part of their overhead and their time is the energy of getting the entitlements. And that could be, I don't know if it's here, some other zoning incentives or whatever.
Yeah, we'll get to that. Yeah, I think, it is important to keep the developer communities part of the development of something like this. You want to make sure that what you come up with is something that fits their mold, reflects the latest development economics as well, so that what you think is cheaper actually is cheaper. But I think we've already engaged those folks. They came to the table in some focus groups we had, and they asked to stay in the conversation. Generally, like when we talked about the reducing the lot width a little bit to make a cheaper unit, one of the feedback we got from the builder who told us that, one of the largest builders around, said they would rather do those lower cost units because they absorb faster, they sell faster. They don't want to sell houses for $900,000. That's just what it costs because of the cost of land, cost of construction these days. If they could make their margin on smaller units in the middle of the market, they could sell those things all day long, and they would be really happy to do that. So there would seem to be a lot of support for something like this. Just keep them in the conversation. So speaking of which, update the affordable housing incentive zoning policy. So this is an example of a policy intended to create, to encourage inclusionary zoning, or encourage the inclusion of lower income units as part of bigger developments. And it comes with some incentives such as fast track development, certain density, height allowances. There's a number of ways these can be structured. What we found in Apex is that I think it could be intensified a little bit. I think we need to open up some of the, well, I won't steal staff's thunder, but I think you're going to see a specific proposal, some specific adjustments to this policy very soon, which we would endorse. We work together with them a little bit on that, and just to make this both more effective, more inclusionary, have it yield more units per project, and also have the process run quicker and more smoothly, because at the end of the day, that's a big driver of cost too. Just getting these projects done faster makes them cost less. Lowering the risk level makes it easier for people to deliver more units faster. And then another program that you'll hear more about very soon, a pilot program to incentivize affordable unit development. So in this case, it's a financial incentive. The staff is going to tell you next time about a pilot for this, considering, again, that $40,000 per door. In this case, pilot it with a $400,000 budget. And here we're subsidizing affordable home ownership on a unit-by-unit basis, as opposed to other incentive programs or subsidies that are maybe more project-wide. So here we're really targeting specific units. And it's focused on, like the other program we talked about, income-eligible home buyers and also promoting it to developers to build awareness and get them plugged into the program so they're integrating it into more of their development projects, and just try to get this tested through the pilot program, and if it's successful, let's expand this as well.
So this one I thought was also not legal because I thought we could only incentivize the whole project versus like 1 or 2 units ourselves. That's what I remember in some planning meetings, is that we couldn't do this kind of partial, like a few units per development incentive. Is that not correct either?
Either. Sound like it.
I think that was in the planning committee we talked about it, frankly.
And I don't want to sound like I'm avoiding the question, but when you ask about it from a legality standpoint, I don't really want to weigh in on what the legalities are. But generally speaking, we've seen other instances where you can dedicate a certain number of units. It doesn't have to be project-wide. We'd have to identify, because it starts with making sure that it meets the income eligibility, first and foremost, that the units will go to somebody who's income eligible. And so there are a lot of other nuances that go along with it, but from a legality standpoint, I don't really want to speak to that language.
Well, you wouldn't pursue something that was illegal, right? Obviously. Okay. I just thought we couldn't do it. That's what, and that's the one I think we could have had the most impact on throughout the time, is if we could have said, hey, if you go from like 5% to 15%, we'll throw in some money. There've been so many of those that we could have done probably that they would have probably jumped at, but I thought we couldn't do it.
And that's part of where we're hoping to get to, is, in addition to actually saying we want units, and now we can actually help them do that by investing some dollars into those projects, just like we do right now with the multifamily developments. How do we then invest on the ownership side and also make those more attractive and doable for those who want home ownership, which of course we see many people prefer that, but then how do we bridge that gap? So this was one of the ideas we had to try to help bridge that gap, is to invest directly on the development side to help bring that cost down. And we'll talk more about it on the 24th, okay. I hope.
Yes. Thank you, Marla. Okay, and that's the end of the list.
Awesome. Good job, Jeff.
Great.
All right.
Any other? So I know you want to say something else, Marla?
No,
okay.
I'm just going to be handy in case I need to say something.
Sure. So as I mentioned, the backup analysis is available. I think that was sent to you in the packet. That'll be part of the plan as well. We have the online dashboard portion too. So this data is available to dig into more, both on your part and also the public's part.
Okay, thank you. I just want to thank you for your presentation, Marla, you and your team. Great job. I know there's a lot of work, and all the community members involved. Mr. Welch, thank you for everything you've done as well. So great job. I just have one question about the dashboard. It's actually getting a little bit into the details, but I haven't visited, so shame on me. Does it break down AMI units, like total units approved and things like that, or is it just flat? Because I'm just looking at just for community awareness and just making sure it's consistently put out there to the community. How many units are we short of, like the 500 over 10 years? How is that going to be displayed?
So what we currently have in terms of a development dashboard shows how many rezonings we've had, how many of those had affordable units committed and things of that nature. So that's one dashboard. Then we have currently the data dashboard, which kind of gives you market numbers, kind of tell you where Apex is with regard to home ownership, rental, demographics. So it's data driven, very heavy data. This particular dashboard that was created as part of the housing plan kind of is a blend of both, gives you how many units we need at different price points, different income bands, and things of that nature. So it's kind of a marriage of both, and I think that will play a significant role in how we track what we do going forward, is with the dashboard that's been created as part of the update of this plan. So we have a couple of dashboards that serve different purposes. One is just simply data-driven, just to know where we are as a community. Then the other really talks about the development that is happening in town and tracks those affordable units based on the developments. Usually you see those as part of rezonings and so forth.
Right.
That's where you usually start to talk about the actual affordable units versus just market development that's happening.
Thank you so much.
I think from a data standpoint, it's really important to track on both sides of the coin. One, the leading indicators, how are we making progress towards the unit count we're driving for? And then the other data tells us how we've been doing, helps us track progress more broadly across the community. Are we having the impact we intended?
Thank you for that, Claire.
One thing I've struggled with this topic is the fact that it just seems like we're going up against just this national and regional trend in housing affordability issues. And like, I guess I think we've been more cognizant of housing and put direct money into it through that past few years. And our zonings, I think, have been oftentimes townhomes and multifamily more than we used to. And you talked about the rebalancing thing. That, I've not seen as much of that from some of our peers in Wake County. And I wonder, has it mattered? Has it actually changed affordability here in Apex relative to the places that have not really focused on that at all? Because it seems like everybody's kind of just not affordable right now in Wake County. It's like it didn't matter what you did over the last decade.
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging in most places. I think one measure, it doesn't directly answer your question, that we've seen in different markets across the country is when you look at the places that are building more housing just in general, see a slower rate of increase in prices. So that's one measure. Continue building. We all have to kind of contribute to this in terms of, so that's just keep the development going, but then where you're developing, where you can make as many of those units affordable as possible. But I think it's an uphill battle for everyone. I mean, it's another thing to keep track of. I think we need more regional collaboration to compare notes. In some regions like this one, different communities are at different stages of their development, future. And so we've worked in places where, the next town over has already been through this. We talked about some other communities that are already implementing similar programs, and I think having that regional coordination can help us all work together. So we're contributing. I mean, this is town lines don't mean so much sometimes in a market perspective, and we need to work as a region towards a shared goal that's bigger than just what Apex is facing today. So I think the county is already doing work like this as well to try to have a broader conversation around it, so we can all work together within our local context, which might be a little different from place to place, but we all share the same economy, we share the same workforce, people are driving all over the place. We all need to make it work for the whole region together.
I also think that a lot of those projects have not come online yet. Like if you look at Depot 499 with the apartment units in particular, right? Like those are just now, nearing completion. So I think a lot of the rebalancing, especially, some of the, the rezonings and the conditions that were set over the last, 2, 3, 4 years have not really come to fruition yet. So I think it's a little bit, we're kind of early on the bubble to make a determination where, it has moved the needle and how far.
You could make the argument that we haven't been building enough housing for a generation, and it's going to take more than a few projects in a few years to start to see progress coming out of that deficit.
But we're accused every town council meeting about overbuilding in our areas. So it's like it's a challenge. Like we get accused of that versus not underbuilding in this case. So it's like it's hard to match those together.
Which is why I was saying sharing that outside of the dashboard is going to be really important from a communication standpoint, so people can see it consistently. Yeah.
I got some questions on the financials. So first of all, I wish that we had 143 million laying around to dedicate to the problem, right? Unfortunately, that's not the case. My first question being like the magic number of $40,000 per unit. Like what's that grounded in? Like what's that number based on?
Yeah. So I think, in some cases that's not enough. In some cases it is enough. It kind of depends on the exact income of the person in the program. It's going to cost more to build a 50% AMI project than an 80% AMI unit. But when we were evaluating the programs that exist today and those that are delivering some results, that kind of felt like the average that we should be benchmarking towards. And in many cases, like I said before, that needs to be paired with other funding streams too. But Apex's contribution of the 40,000 on average would be enough through partnerships in some cases to catalyze real units for these people.
And if I could add, there was just a story, ABC 11 profiled a new program in Raleigh, and it's homeownership, and they're making a contribution of $60,000 per unit in Raleigh. So just based on development costs and so forth, there's kind of I call it a back of the napkin calculation that you do on average, what's the gap? And so when we look at what the gap could be to get the house down to what we call the HUD sales price limit, and then looking at affordability, $40,000 was enough to get that gap down. So then when you layer in the other down payment assistance from Wake County and NCHFA, it was now affordable. So it was really a calculation that we did, starting with what the sales price is likely to be here, what the maximum sales price can be under HUD guidelines, because we really track the HUD guidelines because it gives us consistency. So then we were able to see what the gap was, and then what the other resources are available in the area, and then that's how we got to what was really necessary to get to affordability.
So, and so the basis of my question is, because there's two ways of closing that $143 million gap, right? Find more money or make that 40,000 less per unit, right? And so how much of the recommendations that are in here are targeting making that contribution smaller, right? So for example, we talked about the pre-approved housing plans, right? If a developer doesn't need to design the house and go through, the permitting process and whatnot because it's already done, right? Does that mean that the contribution is lower? Now it's 25,000 or 30,000 instead of 40,000, right? And so do our existing dollars carry us further if we do some of these programs versus just, counting on $40,000, that's what it is?
I think it's going to depend on what the actual development is. And I think it's not an either or, but a both and. I think we have to look at, the type of development, the size, all of those things we talked about. Is it going to be a smaller lot size, a smaller square footage? What's really necessary? Because actually we could maybe get a little deeper in terms of the income qualifications depending on how much subsidy is provided. Certainly we have the time savings and from a regulatory standpoint for approvals and so forth. So there are different ways I think that we can get at affordability. So I think it's a combination, and it's really the ultimate amount, because really we're looking at up to 40,000, but that doesn't mean that everybody regardless gets 40,000. I think it's really going to depend on the development. Certainly just like we do with the rental developments where we do gap financing, we'd be looking for a pro forma, what are your development costs? So how can we help you shave, and then how much do you still need from us to get over the threshold? So I think it's going to require that we do an analysis of every deal. It won't be just across the board. Everybody gets it no matter what, no matter if you need 40, no matter if you need 30, but we're not going to give you 40 if all you need is 30.
Yeah, and so here's the challenge I'm having, right? Just to put my next set of comments in context. I really appreciate the detail that's in this plan and all the backup information, right? And there's tons of great, data and stuff in there. And so we've really done a lot of work on this, right? But we're being asked to adopt a plan tonight, right? And some of these questions just don't seem to be answered yet, right? Like we have to do analysis, we have to look at this, and then what are these recommendations truly based on, right? And so are they fully vetted? Are they not fully vetted? And if not, then what does it take us to get there, right? So that we have a plan that actually has measurable outcomes, right? We said we are going, by adopting this plan, we are going to make a 1,000-unit dent in our problem, right? Because right now it feels kind of open-ended to me, and so I'm a big supporter of affordable housing, right? And I would argue that some of our plans don't go far enough, right? And we keep talking about 80% AMI and people below 80% having such a challenge, with housing. But then I look at the policies that we're writing, and they're targeted mostly at the 80 to 120% AMI range, right? And so I want to be aggressive here. I want to make an impact and make real momentum or create real momentum behind tackling this initiative. I'm just not understanding how adopting this plan here tonight is going to actually get us there, or how much of the way we're going to get by adopting this plan tonight. And so it's also, and this is a comment for my colleagues, why I had requested to make tonight just a presentation and then look at the whole package, the affordable housing plan, the policy, and the proposed pilot program kind of as a single package to vote on in the subsequent meeting, right? Because I think we need to look at these things cohesively instead of as individual pieces, right? Because if we're looking at the policy 2 weeks from now and going like, oh, this is great, right? But then it doesn't really address the gap that the housing plan here and the analysis tell us that we have. by kind of separating the conversation, I think we're kind of losing the thread.
So the plan is the overarching, these are the ideas, the strategies that we would recommend. Then the next step is to come to you with the specific policy initiatives. So there are a number of ideas and so forth that are teed up in the plan, not the specific metrics and all of that, but overarching. We've updated the data, we're continuing what we've started, but then we also have some new ideas. These are what some of the new ideas look like, but we will bring those new ideas back to you and have that broken down with the kind of detail I think that you might be looking for. I understand the idea of having it comprehensive, and that was initially the thought we had as well. However, I think understanding that we have just an overarching plan like we did the first time, and then the individual programs had to be created. So then Apex Cares was created, the Housing Fund was created, and so different things then came out of that initial plan that became policy. The incentive zoning policy was a recommendation in the first plan, and then 2 years later it was actually created. So we're doing a similar process where we're kind of teeing up the ideas and strategies. Now staff goes back and puts that together and comes back to you with the individual pieces. Like the incentive zoning, it's an update, okay? Based on our experience, we've had few takers on that, right? Okay, so here are some things that we might be able to do to get more takers. Right. So that's what we'll bring back. So I didn't want to give the impression that this was supposed to be the controlling document in terms of the individual aspects of what we can do, but to kind of have them in one cohesive place, or comprehensive place really, to see what it all looks like and the interplay together, and then we bring back the pieces.
And that makes sense, and most of these recommendations are kind of, yeah, okay, we can work on that tomorrow, right? The one that's I have a bit of a hard time digesting right now is the budget recommendation of, we'll go from $20 million of funding over the next 10 years to $40 million. Because if this is a concept, right, I don't want to set the expectation by adopting this plan that all of a sudden we're going to increase the funding, 2x, right? And so I just, or without a plan to do so, right, because we got to understand the budget impact, or are we going to do a bond, or are we going to do it based on the community investment funding that we're already setting aside? Like, what's the plan here, right? And so I don't want to set the expectation that, great, Apex is going to go to $40 million of affordable housing funding over the next 10 years by adopting this tonight. Like, there's still a lot of detail that needs to be figured out underneath all that.
If I could jump in there, it sounds like you should vote against the plan then, because this is our policy, and this does say, by us adopting this, is us basically committing in policy to going to 40 million.
Well, and that's where I'm stuck, right? Because I am supportive of doing the work, right? I want to do the work, but we don't have much of the detail behind it yet. And again, like the zoning policy is a piece of it, but we're looking at that completely independent of the plan here. And so I don't want to go on record voting no against affordable housing, because I am supportive, right? I just like to see more of it. Like, what are we doing here?
Well, then offer an amendment to strike that part, and then you'll get outvoted, and then you could say I voted for this thing, and then vote for the plan at the end. There's things you can do to register your position without having to vote against the plan. I'm being serious though. The way to look at this plan, in my view, it's a high level set of policy goals that we're adopting. This is going to be our policy. We're going to say it is our policy to do this. Might not happen tomorrow, but over the scope of the plan,
yeah, this is not planned. This is not planned to be in the weeds at this point in time. And there is a perfect saying: "Put your money where your mouth is." Right? If you're going to say you support affordable housing, you're going to need to fund it in some manner, and the amount that we need to fund in order to get to the level that's really supportive of our community in the ways that we know we need to be supportive of the community is what's recommended. So we either accept that, or we continue to kick the can down the road and continue to have these issues and continue to have people that need to live in our community that cannot.
Put your money where your mouth is. Is that a motion?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay.
I think that's a bit of a false choice. That was presented. But.
My take on this was pretty simple. You're looking to us to be able to provide policy guidance direction, You need intent that you want us to go into. You're giving us this in a big picture, not in granular detail. You're going to come back with granular detail. We can talk about the ins and out of that granular detail, but right now you need us to walk, you need to be able to told which direction to walk into.
Right, because I just want to say, I'm not standing here saying we need to do a budget action in order to make this happen. That's a separate conversation another time. But in general, we're saying if we're going to go down the road, here is an example of the kind of resources that will be needed. But we're not asking that you say, yes, we're going to do these resources in this amount today, because, you know, by the time we have the conversation, it might be a slightly different number, but you have the concept of what this would look like if we were to invest $40 a door, whatever. These are the things then that we would need to make it happen. So I don't want to indicate in any way that I'm looking for a commitment to actually spend X amount of money. Some of this was examples and illustrative, so you can kind of get an understanding of where we're going conceptually. Yeah.
I got it.
Right. Motion to approve.
We got a motion over here. Oh, where's your, do you care?
Well, I don't care.
You want
Okay.
it?
That's good.
If you want it, I'll give it to you.
Give it to her. Yeah.
Yeah,
Already
she
made
had
the
she said it
motion.
first.
All right.
Motion,
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem. All
There you
right.
go.
Any more discussion? But I understand where you're coming from. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. Good job.
I will say too, I am super proud that we, only, this few years in, we've gotten to, version 2.0 of this plan, because our staff and our council has worked so hard on this. So, thank you.
Thank you all. All right, let's go. All right, motion to go into closed session.
Motion to go into closed session.
Pro Tem, second, Killingsworth. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, going into closed session. Thank you, Sergeant, for being here.
back in session. The mayor has recused himself from this matter. We'll look at the resolution for authorizing eminent domain proceedings against related to property and street and side path project along Jesse Drive. We'll entertain any motions to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve that resolution.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? There being none opposed, that passes unanimously 5-0. Do we need to bring them back in?
Let's just
close out? Or we can just close
Okay,
out?
just-
All right, we'll go ahead and we'll declare this meeting adjourned then. There being no other business, adjourned.